All right, everyone, we're going to get started here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway with our media availabilities for the weekend. We are starting off with Indiana native Chase Briscoe, driver of the number 14 Stuart Haas Racing Ford. Chase also has a win earlier this year at Phoenix and is qualified for the playoffs. Chase, what's it like coming back here to Indiana? Maybe get a little bit of revenge from last year?
Yeah, hopefully. Just nice to be home. Every other weekend I feel like I got to get my GPS out and just try to figure out where I'm going. And this place, I obviously know where I'm going. So it's nice to be home. I got a lot of family here, a lot of friends here this weekend. So, yeah, it was definitely close last year. Hopefully can seal the deal this year. And, yeah, just excited to be home. I'm going to stay up here throughout the week after and just drive up to Michigan. So looking forward to being up here finally. I've had this one circled on the calendar for a long time and just glad it's finally here.
Awesome. Well, we'll open it up to questions for Chase. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless microphone to you, and we'll start here in the back.
Hey, Chase, do you find yourself racing any different with the win already this year, or do you feel you're still the same guy, same aggressive driver that you always have been?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I run kind of changed a little bit. Like last year here, for example, we had to win the race to try to get in the playoffs, so we just did whatever was best strategy-wise for that. Where now, with kind of our point situation, we kind of got to not try to win. Obviously, we're still trying to win, but our strategy might not put us in the best situation to win the race at the end. So I think that's really the only thing that changes this time around versus last year, and having that win now versus not having one. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully, we have a good weekend, but I don't feel like I drive any different just because I have a win. I feel like it's kind of been the same the whole time.
Stay over there on the side, right there in front of you.
Tucker White, Last Word on Sports. Chase, earlier today, track president Doug Bowles announced that for the foreseeable future, the Cup Series is probably staying on the road course here. So, road course or oval?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always said the same thing every time. I mean, I just want to race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, whether it's the oval, the road course, the dirt track over there, I mean, even the quarter-midget kids in the parking lot, I mean, you drive through the same tunnel either way. So I just want to race at Indianapolis. I mean, from a prestige standpoint and a history standpoint, I mean, yeah, I would love to win on the oval, but just because I won it on the road course a couple of years ago, I still won at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So for me, I don't think it really changes a whole lot, but I do think, the road course puts on a really good race. But I think with this new car, maybe 5 years from now, like, let's run the oval one time just to see what the fan turnout is and how the race is. But for me, I just want to race in Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Like I said, whether it's the oval, the road course, the dirt track over there, whatever, if they're racing, I want to run it. So for me, I don't have a preference one way or the other. I just want to race here. And, but from a history standpoint, I think, yeah, I mean, everybody will say the oval means a little bit more to win at, but you still want Indianapolis one way or the other.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to go over here to Kelly. Tucker, please give it back to the person who's running the mics. Going to go to Kelly and then Bruce.
Kelly, KernelRacer.com. Chase, I got a couple. First off, started off talking about last year's race. Have you rewatched that race at all, or does it live in your head and what ifs?
I don't have to watch it. I know what happens. So, yeah, for me, I think there's a lot of takeaways still from last year. Like, I felt like that was the one race that kind of changed my confidence level, just knowing that I was capable of performing like at this level, leading laps and battling for a win. But, yeah, I haven't watched the race back. I mean, I've seen the highlight, obviously, a couple times, but I haven't watched the race back, going into this weekend or anything like that. I kind of tried to forget about it, truthfully. So, I haven't watched it back, but definitely can remember a lot of that race for sure.
So you try to forget about it, so you don't look at this as like a redemption or a revenge weekend. You don't come here any differently.
I mean, I feel like, not for that reason. I feel like I come here differently every year. I was talking to Tony about it one time. It seems like whenever, like, Indiana, if you're from Indiana, at least for me speaking, and I feel like Tony was the same way, like, you just rise to this different occasion for whatever reason. Like, I wish I could harness that every other weekend of the year. But you just have so much pressure, not pressure like from anybody. It's just like a pressure on yourself. Like, you want, as an Indiana guy, you want to perform here. And it seems like the fans just really get behind having an Indiana driver at Indianapolis. And for me, I feel like I definitely put a little more emphasis on this race from like just an internal pressure side. But yeah, I'm not coming here with revenge. But I will say, like, this whole week I've been pretty determined. Like, I want to win every practice, every between Xfinity and Cup. Just coming to Indy, you want to do that as an Indiana guy. So, Yeah, I don't know. There's no revenge though from last year. I just put a lot of pressure on myself every time I come here to perform.
And one last thing, Kurt is obviously missing his second straight race with concussion-like symptoms after the hit last week. As a driver, how much do you want to know any data or anything that comes out of crashes like that in case anything can be learned for what you or your team is doing, or just to know what this car is registering with hits and things? Yeah,
I mean, first off, I just hope Kurt gets back to the racetrack. Obviously, we miss him. He's an awesome competitor. But, yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know. Do I really want to know? I think there's times I would like to know, but at the same time, I feel like it's probably better off not knowing either. But I think you do need to think about that a little bit. Especially I got hopefully a lot of years left, so the safer the car is, the better. And I think NASCAR's done a great job of trying to get it better. I don't think they would put out a product that was worse. I think this car is going to take time to figure out, when it hits in certain situations. And there's going to be times where we're going to constantly evolve. I mean, we've changed quite a bit on this car already. And, as we get more data points, I think we can take away from those and hopefully make it better, every time. But until, truthfully, we crash it hard a couple times, it's going to take, a set of data points to find out what we need to do different. And, it's unfortunate that we have to do that, but that's just the truth of it, I feel like. So for me, I don't really care to see him. If I crash big, I'd like to know how many G-forces it was or whatever. But to be honest with you, the numbers, I don't really know what I'm looking at anyways. So it's not like it's going to make a huge difference for me. Yeah.
We'll go to Bruce, and then we'll stay in the middle with Steven.
What's the community support for you like down in Mitchell? The fact that, prior to that, the biggest name from that town was Gus Grissom, the astronaut. But, I mean, is it a big deal when you return home?
I mean, truthfully, I don't get home often other than Christmas, and I will say it's cool to see that, ever since I even started running ARCA, it was mind-blowing how many people, were into it just because I was from there. And I think that's one reason I put a lot of pressure on myself whenever I come here, is just there's a lot of people that, honestly, probably aren't even race fans, but they want to come and support me just because it's an hour away. And, I want to make them enjoy it, and I do think that it's pretty special. Coming from a small town, you just have that support. If I was from, Indianapolis, for example, there's just so many people. A lot of people wouldn't even care probably. But being from Mitchell, and it's, I think, population of 3,000 maybe, it's a lot cooler for the small town side, I think. And, we had Gus Grissom, who's an astronaut, Terry Cole, who was the football player. And, I mean, hopefully I can maybe be one of those names up there with him, because in Mitchell, that was a huge name. So, yeah, I definitely think it's humbling for sure. Just the support not only from Mitchell, truthfully, but just the whole county of Lawrence County has really gotten behind me, and definitely appreciative of it.
And when you were a kid, did you go to Bloomington Speedway much?
Oh, yeah, I lived at Bloomington. I flagged right there on the front stretch, front row. It seemed like that was my dad's best track. I felt like I was always taking a picture on the first straightaway. I mean, I pretty much lived at Bloomington Speedway every Friday night. I remember it came up with my Facebook memories just this week. The Indiana Sprint Week is honestly going on this week, and they're at Bloomington tonight. And I put, it was 12 years ago, the Indiana Sprint Week show at Bloomington tonight. It's my version of the Indy 500 or the Daytona 500. That's how much Bloomington meant to me. So, yeah, I was trying to go down there tonight to make it. But, yeah, I went to Bloomington Speedway all the time. That was really where I grew up.
And what was the first time you came here as a kid? So
the first time I came here was actually it was across the street from the tunnel. That Speedway shop right there, Jim Bob Luger owned it, and that's where I got my first race uniform when I was 7 years old. And I remember going over there, getting my uniform, and then we came in here and drove around and saw it. And then my first race I came to, I think I was probably 10. But, yeah, I got my first ever race uniform literally right there across the street. So I know we just sold it a couple months ago, so it's kind of reminiscent. When I was pulling in here, I was telling my mom and my wife, my mom remembered going. She's like, I remember how excited you were and how special that day was. So it's definitely got a lot of connections, this place, and been coming here. I've probably been here for 20-something races as a spectator.
Was your first race an Indy 500 or a Brickyard?
My first race was an Indy 500, and then I came to the Brickyard the next probably 6 years in a row. I know I came from the 94th to the 99th running of the 500, and then I missed the 100th, and I'm still mad I did it. So I've never seen this place 100% sold out, and I know that 100th was, and then now I can't get up here, obviously, for the month of May. So hopefully maybe one day I can get up here.
Go to Steven and then Daniel.
Steve Conley, the podium finish. Chase, you're talking about all the memories that you have. A lot of drivers with their tracks that are close to home have those butterflies when they pull into the tunnel the very first time or each time they come back.
Yep.
Tony talked about that before with here. Do you have that same feeling when you pull in here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even like all week, I've just been like excited to get back to Indy. And I mean, like even when I got off the plane, I felt like I was like back home. Like it's literally as soon as my foot hit the ground, I was like, all right, like it's go time. Like we're here. Like you've been waiting for this week all year long. So yeah, I think for sure there's butterflies every time you come here. But I tell everybody all the time, if you grow up racing or in motorsports, you dream of getting to come to Indianapolis Motor Speedway and to have the privilege for that to be your hometown track and come here as a kid watching races. To me, it just makes it even more special. I mean, I think every driver in the field this weekend will tell you it's special to be able to be here. But when you grew up, literally an hour away and came here all the time as a kid, it just makes it even more special. I mean, I got to see my heroes run around this place. Dreamed of being on the other side of the catch fence, and now I'm the guy on the racetrack that people are here watching. So it's definitely special.
Now, talking about the race a little bit, obviously, turn one was an issue last year. If it comes down to late race restarts, you're in front. Does that inside-outside lane really kind of take thought process?
I mean, if I'm the leader, I'm for sure taking the inside, just because if you're that guy on the outside, I feel like you're at a huge disadvantage. And even last year when that happened, I mean, I was rolling around there under caution, and I told myself you're probably going to get ran off, and as soon as you do, just go wide open through the grass and give it back. And that's why I think when it happened, like I'd already had that plan because I knew it was probably coming anyways. And I think for me, if I was in the lead at the end, I'm for sure going to take the inside just because I think you can control it better. But yeah, it's definitely, it's a tight corner down there, how it comes up, and we're all, especially at the end of the race, everybody's driving in there farther than they have all day trying to get something. So yeah, I think, hopefully we're in that situation on the front row again at the end of the race. But yeah, if I have the choice, I'm definitely going to take the inside.
I'll go to Daniel, Nate, and then Kurt.
Dylan McFadden, FrenchTrench.com. I got two questions. So, Chase, we've had 3 road course races with this car so far. How would you grade its performance, and how do you think it's going to compare to what you've experienced so far?
Yeah, I feel like it's hard because I have a different perspective. Like I'm just driving the 14 car. I'm not watching the whole race. And like for us, I thought the first race was awesome because we had really good speed. In the last 2, we've kind of struggled. But I do think this car definitely does a lot of things different. It does a lot of things better. This week I think I'll get probably the truest perspective I've had just running both cars. The Xfinity car is pretty similar to what we had in Cup before, and just seeing how, truthfully, much worse it does everything than the next-gen car, I think will be a little bit eye-opening because I know, like Thursday, I went to the simulator for the Xfinity car, and I couldn't believe how just bad it was, like out of control, didn't want to stop. You get kind of spoiled in the next-gen car because it does do a lot of things really, really well. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this place will be unique because it is totally different. The tires were out a little different than other places we go. So hopefully, we'll be slipping and sliding a little bit more in the next-gen car. But it definitely is going to be different. I think you're going to have to learn a whole new racetrack, even though we've been here, just because every time we go to next-gen, it's so opposite. It's hard to really take anything away from it.
So, and in general, this car, we're through like 21, 22 races.
Yeah.
So at this point in the season, what is like your evaluation of how the car performs? Like, what are the pros and what are the cons in your eyes?
I think for me, I would say the car has honestly done way better than I expected. I think, when we all did that open test at Charlotte in like October, it was pretty scary. Like we couldn't get within 40 car lengths of each other, and NASCAR did an incredible job of, going to work and honestly listening to the drivers, of kind of giving them ideas to go try. And, I think the mile-and-a-half racing's been probably the best it's ever been. We can get really close to each other. We can just move around a whole lot more. The short track side has been the side that I feel like has kind of struggled a little bit, and I think that's surprising to all of us, and I think we're trying to do what we can to make it better. So I think this car's outperformed my expectations. I think there's still things that could do better, but I mean, I was terrified, hearing the stories leading into that first test, just how hard they are to drive and how different it's going to be. And it's still a race car. It's still got, gas brake, got a steering wheel, and it still does a lot of the same things the old car did. It just does them a little bit different, and you have to figure it out. So for me, I'd give it a B+. I think it could be better, obviously, on some racetracks, but it does a lot of things a lot better than I thought it was going to, and I think the racing's been a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, obviously, I don't think you can change it. The aero side, it's just weird because the mile and a half's where the aero's normally the biggest is where we have the least issues. But then you go to a short track or even a road course, the aero plays in. It seems like the slower speeds we go, the worse the aero is, and you're never gonna get rid of aero. Like, it's always going to be there. So I think, as we change things with this car and, figure out what works for it, I think it'll be better. But I would say that would be the biggest thing is just, figuring out how to make the short tracks better, because that is an area where we always have great TV numbers. The races are always awesome, and, I don't want to lose that. Yeah.
We'll go to Nate in the back left, and then we'll go up to Kurt.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Hey, Chase. So when we talked to you at Atlanta, there were eight races left in the regular season. At that point, I think you were the last driver with one win, and you were telling us that you were pretty nervous. So now there's 5 races to go. There's been one new winner, but certainly fewer races to go. And I think with Kurt missing his second race, you're probably got a little bit more wiggle room there at the bottom. Do you feel better about your playoff position at this point?
I mean, unfortunately, because of Kurt, it definitely makes it a little bit better for us. I don't want to be in that situation because Kurt has ran better than us. Like, he deserves, if it comes down to it, to be in. But, I think for us, it's getting a little easier if we can get through these next couple of weeks. There's just a lot of unknowns. And, there's really only 4 guys that winning would hurt us. Everybody else is so far below us in points, we'd probably be okay. But, 2 of them are my teammates, and then Blaney and Truex. If those 4 guys win, that's where we get in trouble. So, I don't know. I just need to get through the next 3 weeks without a new winner, and then I'll feel a lot better about it. And then if we can just maximize these next couple weeks, and I think there's 2 guys within 15 points of us. So then Kurt missing makes it a little bit easier as well. So the stress level's still there for sure, but it's not as bad. Now, if one of them guys win this weekend, it'll be a lot worse. But so far, I feel good about it. And truthfully, if we win this weekend, it doesn't matter. So that's what we're going to try to do.
We're going to go to Kurt, and then we'll wrap up with Jordan in the back.
Apologies if you answered this. Are you running the midget race?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't miss it in the world.
So what's the next couple of days look like, and how do you feel about you've seen it now?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a busy couple days or a busy week. We're running the Xfinity race tomorrow, practice today. I'm going to go to IRP tonight just to support that place, and then run the Cup race Sunday. I'll go to Cummins on Monday. And then Tuesday, go to Ohio for a Huffy appearance, and Wednesday, Thursday, race at the dirt track, and Friday morning, drive up to Michigan. So try to see some family in between all that. I know Saturday night I'm going to go over to my cousin's house. The whole family's coming over, doing dinner. So, yeah, it'll be a busy couple days, but, it's all worth being back home and just being back in a place that's familiar, being with, people that are really close to me. And definitely, though, looking forward to the dirt race over there. That's one of my favorite races of the year. And the racing's unbelievable. And then just, in honor of Brian Clausen, who, in my opinion, was one of the greatest of all time, to have that race in honor of him at the place that he loved more than anywhere else is just special.
I'm going to wrap up with Jordan.
Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. A lot of talk this year about impacts that the drivers have had when they've been in crashes and the Gs, and how you guys have felt it kind of maybe a little bit longer than the other car. Is there anything with this car that can be done in terms of the construction, or that you'd like to see to kind of maybe limit the impact on the driver where you're not feeling it as much?
It's hard for me to say because I'm not an engineer, I'm not any of that, right? But I do think that this car in that rare 1 to 3% wreck that's just massive, right? That honestly in the old car probably would have been fatal. I think this car is way, way, way better. But I do think your common hits, the ones that we have a lot of the time, might be a touch worse. I can't honestly speak to it because I haven't wrecked really this year. So I haven't really had any issues. I wrecked at Talladega and felt like it was going to be huge, and I was fine. So I think it's just all about how you hit. I think this car definitely, it takes a bigger impact to have stuff give, and it's just those impacts that normally wouldn't even be an issue, right? Nothing gives, so it makes it a lot harder. So I think anything we can do to maybe fix that, but I'm not the guy. I have no idea how to even start to fix that. And like I said, I've been very fortunate not to crash really this year, so I haven't really had a real test to see how it hurts. But, yeah, I definitely think that anything we can do safety-wise is going to be better. But I do think this car and those big impacts that would have been really bad are definitely going to be better in this car for sure.
All right, Chase. Well, thanks for joining us today. Good luck
thank
this
you guys.
weekend.
Appreciate it.